I grew up in a small house at the edge of a subdivision that never quite finished expanding. Behind us was nothing but trees, thin at first, then dense enough that even in winter they looked like a dark wall pressed up against our backyard. Every Christmas Eve, without fail, someone knocked on our front door. Not rang the bell. Knocked. 3 slow knocks. Evenly spaced. Not loud, but firm enough that you could feel it more than hear it. The first time I remember it happening, I was 6 or 7. Old enough to understand routines, young enough not to question them. We were in the living room, the lights off except for the tree. My mom was wrapping the last few presents on the floor, and my dad was half asleep on the couch, pretending not to watch whatever Christmas movie was on. Then came the knock. 3 knocks. Pause. Nothing else. My dad sat up immediately. I remember that part clearly, because he looked annoyed, not startled. Like this was an inconvenience, not a surprise. "I'll get it," he said. My mom didn't look up. "Don't open it." He hesitated, then grabbed his coat anyway. I followed him to the door, staying just far enough back that I couldn't reach the handle. When he opened it, cold air rushed in. The porch light flicked on automatically. No one was there. There were no footsteps on the concrete. No car idling. No shadows moving away. Just empty porch, light snowfall drifting down in the glow of the bulb. My dad stood there for a few seconds longer than felt normal, then shut the door and locked it. "Probably kids," he said too quickly. "Go back to the living room." That should have been the end of it. But the next year it happened again. Same night. Same time. Same knock. By then, I knew to stop what I was doing when I heard it. My parents exchanged a look that they didn't bother hiding anymore. My mom muted the TV. My dad checked the clock. 11:47 p.m. He didn't open the door that year. The knocking didn't change. 3 knocks. Same rhythm. Same pressure. Not angry. Not playful. Patient. It stopped after a few seconds, like it always did. The next morning, my mom insisted we hadn't heard anything at all. She laughed it off, loud and forced, while pouring coffee she didn't drink. But the thing was, we all remembered. By the time I was a teenager, the knocking had become something unspoken but expected. Like a storm you see on the forecast but hope won't hit directly. Every Christmas Eve, my dad checked the locks twice. My mom closed the curtains early. No one sat near the door. We never had guests over that night. My parents always said it was too hectic, but I noticed other families hosting parties, laughing, letting people come and go. We stayed inside. The year I turned 16, I finally asked, "Why don't we just answer it?" I said, actually talk to whoever it is. My dad didn't respond. My mom's hands tightened around her mug. "You don't answer doors that late," she said. "Especially not on Christmas Eve." That's not an answer. She looked at me then, really looked at me, like she was weighing whether I was old enough to carry something she'd been holding alone. But my dad cut in. "Drop it!" The knocking came that night anyway. 3 knocks. I counted the seconds this time. From the first knock to the last echo fading away, it lasted exactly 9 seconds. I remember because I timed my breathing to it. In, out, in. After that year, things changed. Not the knocking. The house. We started finding small things out of place the morning after. Not missing, just wrong. An ornament moved from one branch to another. The front mat turned slightly, like someone had nudged it with their foot. Once, the chain lock on the door was undone, even though the deadbolt was still secure. My dad said it was drafts. Settling. Old hardware. But the house wasn't old. The worst part was the snow. Every year, it snowed just enough to leave a thin, clean layer on the porch. Untouched. Smooth. No footprints. No disturbance. The knocking came from nowhere. The year I went away for college, I thought that would be the end of it for me. I was in a dorm 3 states away, surrounded by noise and people and doors that slammed constantly. I didn't hear the knocking, but my mom called me Christmas morning, her voice thin and tired. "It didn't stop," she said. "What do you mean?" "It knocked again. But this time," she paused. I could hear my dad in the background, pacing. "This time it knocked back." I laughed, because that was easier than imagining what she meant. "What do you mean knocked back?" She didn't answer. She just said she'd explain when I got home. When I did come back, 2 years later, the house felt smaller, like it was holding its breath. My dad had aged more than he should have in that time. He barely slept. My mom avoided the front hallway entirely. That Christmas Eve, they didn't even turn on the tree lights. "We're not acknowledging it," my dad said. "We won't this year." 11:47 p.m. came and went. Nothing happened. 11:48, 11:49. I felt a strange mix of relief and disappointment, like part of me had been waiting my whole life to finally see something. Then, at 11:51, 3 knocks. But this time, they came from inside the house. Not the front door. The wall behind it. I didn't scream. None of us did. We sat there frozen, listening as the knocks repeated. Same rhythm, same pressure, but now closer. Too close. Then came something worse. A pause. And then, from the other side of the wall, something knocked back. 1 knock. 2. 3. Perfectly mirroring us. That was the last Christmas we spent in that house. We moved in March. No explanations given to neighbors. No goodbye party. I don't know what would have happened if we'd opened the door all those years ago. But I know this. Whatever was knocking didn't want to come in. It wanted us to answer. And every Christmas Eve since, wherever I am, I make sure I'm nowhere near a door at 11:47 p.m. Just in case it followed me. I was 21 when I took the job. It was seasonal work at a small mall about 40 minutes from where I lived. I needed the money, and I figured sitting in a chair and talking to kids would be easy enough. They gave me the suit, the beard, and a short orientation. Smile. Ask their name. Ask what they want for Christmas. Keep it short. Parents do not like long interactions. Most kids were exactly the same. Nervous at first. Excited once they realized Santa was listening. Some cried. Some pulled my beard. Nothing unusual. The mall closed at 9. Santa hours ended at 8:30. That mattered later. About a week before Christmas, a woman brought her son to see me late in the evening. I remember checking the clock behind her. It was 8:26 p.m. The boy climbed onto my lap without hesitation. He was small for his age, maybe 5 or 6. Pale. Very still. I asked him his name. He did not answer. His mother laughed and said he was shy. She stood a few feet away, holding her phone but not recording. Just watching. I asked him what he wanted for Christmas. He leaned forward slightly and whispered something. I did not hear it at first, so I leaned in closer. I remember the smell. Not sweat or dirt. Something faint and cold, like damp air. He said my name. Not Santa. My real name. I froze for a second, then smiled because that was part of the job. I assumed his mother had told him earlier. That is when I realized she was shaking her head. I laughed it off and asked if he had been good this year. He nodded once. Then he said very clearly that he wanted me to stop locking my bedroom door at night. I pulled back without meaning to. The beard shifted, and I had to adjust it quickly. His mother apologized and grabbed him by the arm. She said he had been saying strange things lately. Too much imagination. As they walked away, the boy turned his head and looked directly at me. He did not blink. I did not tell anyone. I convinced myself it was a coincidence. Kids say weird things. Parents overshare. That was it. The next night, he came back. Same time. Same clothes. Same expression. This time, his mother did not stand nearby. She waited on a bench behind the line, scrolling on her phone. The boy climbed onto my lap again. He sat perfectly still like he had practiced. I asked him what he wanted for Christmas. He told me he wanted me to remember what I promised last year. I told him I had never seen him before. He smiled at that. Not wide. Just enough to show his teeth. He said he did not like the way the mall closed at night. He said it got quiet too fast. Then he asked me why the cameras stopped recording after midnight. I stood up. I told the elf working with me that I needed a break. The mall security supervisor reviewed the footage later when I asked. They humored me. On the recording, the boy never opened his mouth. He sat there completely still while I reacted to nothing. The audio picked up my voice clearly. His voice was not there. The third time he came was Christmas Eve. The mall stayed open later that night. Crowds everywhere. Noise. Music. Lights. At 8:30 p.m., Santa hours officially ended. I stood up, stretched, and started to leave the chair. The boy was already sitting there. No one had seen him approach. His mother was not anywhere nearby. I told him he had to leave. I told him Santa was done for the night. He asked me if I would miss him when the mall closed forever. I asked him where his mother was. He told me she did not like coming here anymore because she could hear things after closing time. Then he leaned forward and whispered something I will not repeat, because it was something that only I had ever said. Alone. In my apartment. With the door locked. The security lights flickered. I stood up and walked away. I did not look back. I quit the next morning. The mall shut down 2 years later. Structural issues. That is what the news said. Sometimes around Christmas, I still see photos online of that Santa setup. People comment about how empty the place looks. I always wonder if anyone else noticed that the cameras stopped recording after midnight, or if it was just me he wanted to talk to. My family was not superstitious. We did Christmas the same way every year. Tree in the corner of the living room, presents wrapped and stacked underneath. Lights turned on the moment December started. Nothing about it was special or strange until the year I was 12. That was the first year something went missing. It was a small box, light, wrapped in blue paper with a silver ribbon. I remember it clearly because it was mine. My mom had put it under the tree herself. I watched her do it. The next morning, it was gone. We searched everywhere. Behind the couch, under the table, even the trash, in case someone had thrown it out by accident. My parents assumed my younger brother had moved it. He swore he did not touch it. He cried when my dad raised his voice. We let it go. Christmas morning was loud and busy. One missing present did not feel important enough to ruin it. 2 days later, the box reappeared. It was under the tree again. Same spot, same ribbon, but the paper was torn open. Inside was the gift, exactly as it should have been. Nothing missing, nothing broken. My mom asked who opened it. None of us had. She laughed, but it was nervous. She said maybe one of us did it and forgot. The next year, it happened again. This time, it was not just one present. 3 boxes disappeared overnight. Different sizes, different wrapping paper. The tree lights had been unplugged. That detail bothered my dad more than anything else. The outlet was behind the tree, hard to reach without crawling. We checked the doors, all locked. No signs of forced entry. The presents came back 2 days later. All opened, all placed neatly back under the tree. Nothing was stolen. After that, it became a pattern. Every Christmas Eve, sometime after midnight, at least one present would vanish. Sometimes more. The tree lights would be off. Sometimes an ornament would be moved. Sometimes the star on top would be turned slightly, like someone had adjusted it. We started taking pictures before going to bed. My mom said it was just to prove we were not imagining things. The photos always showed everything exactly where it should be. By morning, something was wrong. One year, we stayed up late to catch whoever was doing it. We sat in the living room until almost 3 a.m., watching movies with the lights on. Nothing happened. When we finally went to bed, my dad checked the tree one last time. Everything was in place. In the morning, the tree was still there. The lights were off. All the presents were gone. They came back the following night. Every single one of them. All opened. That was the year my mom cried. She said she did not like the feeling of someone being in the house while we slept. She said it felt personal, like whoever it was knew exactly when to come and when to leave. My dad suggested locking the living room door. It did not help. The door was still locked in the morning. The presents were still disturbed. One year, we stopped putting presents under the tree entirely. We left the space empty. Just the tree. Just the lights. Nothing happened that night. No lights turned off. No ornaments moved. In the morning, the living room looked exactly the same. That should have been comforting. Instead, it felt like we had given in to something. The next year, my mom wrapped a single empty box and placed it under the tree. She said she wanted to see what would happen. The box disappeared. When it came back, it was opened. Inside was nothing, except the wrapping paper was folded neatly and placed inside the box, like someone had taken the time to put it back properly. We never put presents under the tree again after that. Even now, years later, when I visit for Christmas, the gifts are stacked on the table or handed out one by one. The tree is just a tree. Sometimes I catch myself staring at the space underneath it, waiting to see if something will appear on its own. Nothing ever does, but I still turn the lights off before going to bed, just in case. I remember exactly where I was the night it happened. It was 4 years ago on Christmas night. My family had just finished dinner at a nice restaurant, and we were driving home. The ride was long and quiet. My little sister complained about her friend not getting anything for Christmas, and my brother was elbow deep in snacks. After about 20 minutes, my dad pulled off at a gas station. My mom, my siblings, and my dad all got out to use the bathroom. I stayed in the car because I had already gone before we left, and I'd gotten bored playing games on my phone. I glanced at the clock and realized 10 minutes had passed. I wondered what was taking them so long when I saw him. He was standing just outside the car, staring straight at me. It was hard to make out his face because it was dark, but his expressionless face was fixed on mine. The light barely reached him, and he looked middle-aged, plain, unremarkable, except for the way he just stood there watching. As soon as he saw I'd noticed him, he started walking toward the car. I remember that sharp pang of fear in my chest. I did not know how long he'd been there. At that moment, my dad came walking up with the rest of the family. My dad apologized and said he'd been arguing with the cashier. I did not care about that. I was just glad my dad was there. Even after we got back on the road, I could not stop thinking about that man. I tried to shrug it off as nothing. Later that night, while my family slept, I was watching videos on my phone. There was a storm outside, and the noise felt strangely comforting. That did not last long. I heard something smash against my bedroom window. I thought at first it was a bird. Then I pulled back the blinds and saw the same man standing there, staring up at me. His face was twisted into a grin I had never seen before. I screamed. My dad ran down the stairs. I told him what was happening, and he grabbed a baseball bat and told me to call the police. The police arrived and found the man hiding in our shed. He was arrested. The next day my dad checked the back door. The handle was damaged. Whoever he was, he had tried to get inside. That Christmas changed how I felt about safety forever. When I was a kid, one thing obsessed me more than anything else. I wanted to prove Santa was real. That Christmas I had my camera ready. I took pictures and footage of everything leading up to Christmas night. After my parents tucked me in and went to bed, I waited. I had placed my camera in spots I thought Santa might come. Midnight ticked by with nothing. Then I heard the basement door creak open. I hid behind the couch and watched. The figure that came up the stairs was not Santa. It hovered above the floor, tall and cloaked. It made no sound at first, not like I expected. Then I heard the whistling. It was not jingle bells, not anything festive. It was Silent Night, warped and slow. The figure moved toward the Christmas tree. I watched it sniff deeply, and the tree shook. I started shaking. Then it spoke. It told me to come out. Its voice was low and wrong. I stepped forward, and that was the moment I realized the thing in my living room was not a legend. It was something real that should not have been there. I don't know why it came for me that night, but now I never forget the way its voice sounded, or the way its eyes seemed to follow me even after it vanished. Christmas at my great-grandfather's house always felt different from everywhere else. It was a large old place far from town, surrounded by woods that looked endless once the snow settled in. Every year my family gathered there because it was tradition. Fires burned constantly. The halls smelled like pine and old wood. Bells and decorations hung from places that no one ever bothered to dust. When I was 11, my parents invited my best friend Caroline to stay with us for the holidays. She had never been to the house before and kept saying it felt like something out of a storybook. I remember laughing and telling her she would get used to it. The day before Christmas Eve, the snow started early. By nightfall, the storm was heavy enough that you could barely see the trees beyond the yard. Great-grandfather warned us not to wander too far. He always said the woods were not friendly in winter. Caroline and I ignored him. We went out anyway earlier that afternoon and played near the tree line until our fingers went numb. I remember the wind making a strange sound through the branches, almost like distant chimes. Caroline joked that Santa was close. That night, the storm worsened. I woke up sometime after midnight feeling cold. That alone was strange because the house was always overheated. I sat up and realized the fire in our room had gone out. The room felt wrong, too quiet. Then I heard bells. At first I thought it was part of the storm, wind hitting decorations, but the sound was rhythmic, heavy, slow. It was moving closer. I turned my head toward Caroline's bed. Something was standing there. It was tall, taller than any person I had ever seen. Its body was covered in thick dark fur that looked matted and wet. Long horns curved from its head. Chains hung across its chest, and each movement made the bells ring again. I could not move. I could not speak. It leaned down toward Caroline. I remember thinking she was still asleep because she did not react at all. Her chest did not rise. Her face looked peaceful, like she was dreaming. The thing turned its head toward me. Its eyes reflected the firelight even though the fire was out. I felt pressure in my chest like I could not breathe. My legs finally worked, and I slid backward until I hit the wall. I remember closing my eyes and covering my ears, like that would somehow help. The next thing I remember is screaming. The room was full of people. Lights were on. My parents were shaking me. Caroline's bed was empty. She never woke up. They said she had died in her sleep. No signs of struggle. No explanation. Her parents were devastated. Mine refused to talk about that night. Great-grandfather only said one thing to me before he passed away a year later. He told me that some things come when children stop believing for the right reasons. We never spent Christmas at that house again. I tried to convince myself it was a nightmare, trauma, a child's imagination mixed with grief. But every year when winter comes, I hear bells. Not loudly, just enough to notice. Sometimes outside my house, sometimes in dreams, always closer around Christmas. This year my son turned 11. Last night, he asked me why I lock his bedroom door when he sleeps. I did not answer him. I just sat there listening, waiting to hear the bells again. I used to think Christmas felt peaceful because of the quiet. Fewer cars, fewer people outside. Everything slowed down for a few days. After this happened, I stopped confusing quiet with safety. This happened a few years ago, a few days before Christmas. I was staying with my partner in a small town where winter hit hard and early. Snow had already piled up along the roads, and by late afternoon everything outside looked gray and frozen. That evening, we decided to go for a walk. It was one of those nights where the cold feels sharp but clean, and the sky is completely clear. The town had a walking path that led toward a wooded area just outside the neighborhood. We had walked it dozens of times before. Christmas lights were still visible behind us when we stepped onto the trail. The path was narrow but well marked. Snow crunched under our boots. The only sound was our breathing and the wind moving through the trees. About halfway down the trail, my partner stopped. There was a car parked off to the side of the path. That alone was strange. The trail was not connected to any road at that point. You would have had to drive across snow and uneven ground to get there. The car was dark and unlit. Snow covered the roof and hood evenly, like it had been sitting there for a while. There were no footprints leading to or from it. We stood there longer than we should have. Neither of us said anything at first. I remember feeling uncomfortable without fully understanding why. Then we heard something behind us. It sounded like footsteps, but slower than ours. Deliberate. Heavy. We turned around together. At first, I thought it was just the trees. The light from town barely reached that far, and the forest swallowed most shadows. Then I saw the shape standing just beyond where the path curved. It was tall, too tall to be standing comfortably among the branches. It did not move. It did not speak. It just stood there, facing us. I remember trying to convince myself it was a person, a hiker, someone else out late for the holidays. But something was wrong with the way it stood. Its posture was stiff, like it was not used to being upright. And it was too quiet. No breath. No shifting weight. My partner grabbed my arm. We did not run. We walked back the way we came, fast but controlled, like we were afraid that running would make things worse. I did not look back again until we reached the edge of town where the streetlights began. When I finally did, the shape was gone. The car was gone too. We did not talk much that night. We locked the doors earlier than usual. Neither of us slept well. The next morning, we walked past the entrance to the trail. The snow was untouched. No tire tracks. No footprints. Just a clean white surface, like nothing had ever been there. I still think about how still the forest felt that night, how it did not sound alive at all. Now, whenever Christmas comes around and the nights get quiet again, I stay close to the lights. I do not walk trails after dark anymore, and I never assume silence means I am alone. The year this happened, I stayed home alone on Christmas Eve for the first time in my life. My parents had driven out of town to visit relatives, and I could not get the time off work. I told myself it would be fine. Just one quiet night. The house felt different once it got dark. During the day, everything was normal. I cleaned, watched TV, and wrapped the last few presents. By evening, the silence settled in. No cars passing, no neighbors outside, just the hum of the refrigerator and the ticking clock in the hallway. I locked the doors before midnight and checked them twice. That was not paranoia. That was just habit. Around 12:30, I turned off the lights and went to bed. I remember lying there listening to the wind push against the house. It sounded like someone walking slowly around the outside, but I told myself it was just the weather. Then I heard footsteps upstairs. I froze. The sound was clear and deliberate, not creaks, not settling wood. Actual steps, one after another, moving from one end of the hall to the other. I lived alone. I sat up in bed and held my breath. The steps stopped directly above my room. I called out, asking if anyone was there. My voice sounded weak even to me. Nothing answered. Then I heard something else, a soft whisper. It was faint, but close enough that I knew it was coming from inside the house. It said my name, not loudly, not urgently, like someone trying not to wake anyone else. I did not move. I did not answer. The whisper came again, a little closer this time, telling me to come upstairs. It sounded familiar in a way that made my skin crawl. I could not place the voice, but it felt wrong, like it was copying something it had heard before. I stayed in my bed until morning. I did not sleep at all. When the sun came up, I walked through the house with every light on. Nothing was out of place, no doors open, no windows unlocked, but the Christmas tree lights were unplugged. I know I did not unplug them. I had turned them off with the switch before going to bed. I moved out a few months later. Even now, years later, I do not stay alone on Christmas Eve if I can help it, because I still remember how calm that voice sounded when it called my name. The year we bought a real Christmas tree was supposed to be special. We had always used artificial ones before, but my partner wanted the smell of pine in the house. We picked it out together from a small lot just outside town and brought it home tied to the roof of the car. Nothing felt strange at first. We set it up in the living room, watered it, and decorated it slowly over the course of the evening. Ornaments from past years. Lights wrapped carefully so nothing tangled. When we were done, the room felt warm and complete. The first night, I woke up around 2 in the morning because the lights were on. I clearly remembered turning them off before bed. I assumed I had forgotten. I got up, switched them off, and went back to sleep. The second night, the lights were off when I went to bed. I woke up again around the same time. They were back on. That morning, I noticed an ornament had moved. It was a small glass one that usually hung near the bottom. Now it was higher up, tucked deeper into the branches. I asked my partner if they had touched it. They said no. Over the next few days, small things kept changing. Ornaments rotated. Lights unplugged themselves from the outlet. Pine needles appeared in rooms far from the tree. I told myself it was normal. Trees dry out. Branches shift. Old wiring fails. Then one night I heard a sound coming from the living room. It was faint, a soft brushing noise, like fingers moving through branches. I stood in the hallway and listened. The sound stopped the moment I stepped forward. The tree lights were on. I unplugged them and stood there longer than I should have, watching the dark shape of the tree in the quiet room. I remember thinking how tall it looked without the lights on. The next morning, every ornament on the tree was facing the same direction, toward the hallway. I took the tree down that day. As I dragged it outside, I noticed something I had missed before. Deep inside the branches near the trunk, the needles were pressed flat, like something had been gripping them repeatedly. We did not get another real tree after that. Now we decorate lightly. Minimal lights. Nothing left on overnight. I still love Christmas. I just do not like the way trees look in the dark anymore. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you want your story to be featured, send it to me. Check description for the detail. Thank you for watching.